Film club.
Oh, I don't want to find out like that.
I should have been there. I should have been the bard, so I could have seduced the dragon and attacked the liches.
Thank you very much for joining this episode of Film Club.
nerd.
I'm one of your hosts, Andy Harrison. To my right, as always, it's the dragon seducer, Andy Donaldson.
Proper Stranger Things talk.
Every single week in Film Club, we invite you along to watch a film with us. We dive into some of cinema's best before coming back here to talk it out. Andy, this week, one of cinema's best, The Shawshank Redemption.
I can't believe. How old are you? 29?
36.
No, you're about
I
to
look great for 36,
He's about to
don't
go
I?
29, and he's never seen Shawshank until this week.
In case anyone at home has not seen Shawshank, Andy's going to tell you what it's all about.
Shawshank's about Andy, a guy who is wrongly...
One of us.
Yeah,
One of us.
AHAI and Shawshank. Anyway, he's falsely imprisoned for the death of his wife and his wife's lover, and he goes through a few years in prison through hell. He's a banker, by the way, just to clarify.
He's a real banker.
Yeah, a real banker. He gets the respect of fellow inmates and also some of the prison officers for some stuff he does on the side to help to make mates, and some other stuff like helping with tax returns and everything like that, like the warden and the prison officers. So he gets looked after a bit. He's later years in life, I think he's in there 20 years. He goes about his way. He builds up a library, gets loads of money from the Senate, everything like that, and comes to the end where he asks for this little rock tool so he can shape some chess pieces, and it turns out that he escapes.
One side note, he asked for that at the beginning.
Yeah. So really cool, really, really great film. That is a very quick way to go about it. The whole film is about the progression of Andy as a character. Also Red, his mate, who's like the getter of stuff in the prison.
The getter of stuff.
Aye. And it goes through 20 years of his life, and it's just fucking incredible. It's a film about hope. A film about when you're pushed against the edge, hope gets you through. And I still think it is. It's number one on IMDb's top 100 list. Would you agree that it deserves to be there?
Nope.
Of course you don't.
I think this is an absolutely brilliant film. I love it. I think it's so this is the same director as
Frank Darabont.
Frank Darabont, the same director who has Green Mile we did last week.
This is his first proper directorial debut sort of thing.
No, I think he did this after Green Mile.
No, he didn't. I've just checked there before it came in, yeah.
Oh, okay.
He did one film, but I don't know whether or not it was classed as proper debut anyway.
So I think this is a great film. I think it's much, much better than Green Mile. It solves actually a lot of the problems I had with Green Mile. It's beautiful in terms of its cinematography. Its performances are incredible. It's Roger Deakins, the Deke, and then it's great in terms of its plot. It's got this sort of iconic structure and narration with one of Morgan Freeman's best performances.
And Morgan
the
Freeman
sound design,
doing his thing as his narration, probably one of his best narrative pieces.
I love the music of it. I love the
music.
material that influenced where the story is clearly come from.
King. Man.
And clearly it's coming from like Escape from Alcatraz.
Yeah.
And it all sings together in this beautiful way. There's so much better stuff out there.
I thought this would be our thing. No, it would be better because there's stuff like Alien out there and there's stuff like this out there.
Not even Alien. Not even Alien because it deserves to be the best of film of all time. We're talking about the history of cinema. There is so much more out there that has done better things.
So also on the top lists of all time, the list of all time top films, I think, what's it called? Citizen Kane is supposedly top.
Yep.
So the second and third, or like at least in the top 10, are Godfather Part 2, hence why I was going about them, that you haven't seen.
We'll get to.
Yeah.
Again, like it's so a lot this year you'll see this if you're keeping up with Film Club is all about me airing my list of shame.
It's films
and like going through films
he hasn't seen.
That he hasn't. Everyone staying at home has a list of shame. Go and write that list of shame down and start ticking them off one by one, because that's what we're doing this year, is getting through some of that stuff. And I can completely see how Shawshank Redemption is someone's favorite film. I can totally see that, because if you want to start with just the plotting of the film, it's got this amazing framing device in like Morgan Freeman's narration, and it tackles one of the things that we talk about quite a lot on the show, which is this idea of temporal decompression or compression, which is like loads of time passes in this prison. I don't feel like Andy comes into the prison, then like a week later he's out.
Yeah, you see this progression of character. You see
You
him turn from
feel
a
time
new guy
pass.
into a teacher.
And some of my favourite examples of this are things like when he goes into prison for the first day, what's his name is feeding the baby bird. And then later on, you see that bird grown up.
Oh, the crow. Yeah,
crow.
I really enjoyed that. Yeah,
I know,
Jack. Jack?
And Jack. You see Jack free at the end of it. You see loads of little bits and pieces like that. It's like, we mentioned this, Natalie and I mentioned this at the end of the film. Slightly weird that no one ages over 20 years.
Yeah, it depends on how old they are, sort of. I guess there's a couple of characters where they could have done better with their ages, but...
Like, I let it slide. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Like 40 to 60.
And if that's a trade-off, I'll take it. Because I love spending loads and loads of time with these characters and it not being defined by this one tiny moment in their life. It's defined by this life-changing, large-scale experience that they have to go through together. The characters kind of come and go and pass through that prison like people come and go and pass through your life. And like that sort of relationship they've got going on there is amazing. One of the best examples being Tommy, somebody who becomes ingrained as part of that group and ultimately has to die in the sort of ironic sense of justice.
Yep. It's a tale. It's a story of redemption.
So
today we spell it redemption, R-O-N.
Ronald McDonald?
Nah, it's a reference you might not get.
To what?
Anchorman, of course.
Okay. Of course. Why, during the Shawshank Redemption discussion, would you not reference Anchorman?
Redemption, R-O-N. So anyway, then you go on to the actual characters themselves. You know, you go on about it's a great story, but the characters themselves, you look at Andy. It's Tim Robbins, right?
He invented the hula hoop.
You what?
He invented the hula hoop.
Who did?
Tim Robbins. You don't see the Hoodsucker proxy.
Oh, I don't know whether to believe you or not. Anyway, you have this amazing guy, actor, who portrays this incredibly diverse character, but also this really subtle performance. Like, you see this, he's very quiet, he's very, like, now everything like that, he's always been sheltered, very reserved, yeah. And, like, that's his whole story throughout, and yet you see so much depth and expression of his character through these little actions, especially in that one defining moment, which is, I think, arguably everyone's favourite shot of the film, where he escapes a sewer pipe, rips off his top, and he's just like the cover of the film, you know, he's like that, like topless and like that in the rain.
The Christ analogies continue.
Yeah. And I just think it's really good to see someone portrayed that well. We were going about last week, and we were going about Michael Clark Duncan's performance as
Mr. Coffee, John Coffey.
That's one, thank you. And you just see someone like him, but in this case, so reserved and so quiet. And then you contrast that with someone like Red, and you see Red's character, Morgan Freeman, who's very vocal. He's the fucking narrator of the film. Of course, he's vocal and everything like this. He's the wise one, but he's also not wise enough to see through Andy's plan, sort of thing. And you have this like almost like quite similar, but also quite contrasting in terms of personalities. And I just think it comes out really well. And in amongst that, you have the sadistic prison captain, officer captain. You have this
Clancy Brown.
That one. You have the warden, who's very scheming. He's very dishonest. What, as you said before, ironically...
Clancy Brown. So, all those characters then get painted with the brush of Mr. Deakins, because Mr. Deakins can shoot a film. Like, he can really
Clancy
shoot
Brown,
a film. Well, Clancy Brown's the actor who played the guard captain.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. There you go.
Do you know who Clancy Brown is?
Go on.
The voice of Cortex.
No way.
Yeah, the voice of Neo Cortex.
No way. Nice one, Clancy Brown.
So, yeah, they all get painted with the brush of Roger Deakins, who can shoot a film. And not only can he shoot a film, he shoots one of the most naturally beautiful films.
But that's what he's been known for, isn't he? Going through his history.
And especially to take an environment which is not a beautiful environment. It's quite the opposite.
Like greys and concretey and metal.
And he's always been the sort of cinematographer where he'll serve the story over stylistic choices instead. He always goes for quite natural looks.
Yep.
And here he maybe does it better than the rest of his career in terms of just going for a natural sort of unassuming light.
Yep. That
Gorgeous.
makes sense.
I love even little flourishes like the costume design of it. Like Natalie's here again, by the way. Natalie was asking, like, do people wear belts in prison? I was like, no, people do not wear belts in prison.
You can hang yourself.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of making this film have the tactility and the texture that it needs, they have belts and they have like caps. and they'll have like suspenders and things, and it's like you don't need those things, but it gives it this almost, it kind of places it in time, but I'd argue it moreover it makes it timeless. There is a timeless element about it.
I think you're right, because I think you can go and watch, and this film was 1990 something anyway, I'll say here. 1994, Jesus Christ. You think it's like a bit older than that because of just how well it's aged over time. Everything just works well, as you said. Going on about what you said before, like the music's great. Same bloke again, top lad, Thomas Newman. And he does this amazing score, much like he does Green Mile, and he really highlights the best bits. It's not, all right, it's not it's a subtle one. It's not like out there. It's not like, oh, I recognise that score to that score. Everything just fits together to tell this story, and that's, again, like I said last week, that is what makes a really good score. It highlights the most important bits, elates that bit to a new emotional level, and yet it fits in with the piece itself that you let it slide and you just don't even focus on the music. You're so immersed in the story, and the music does that. And great, I'm going to have to watch more of his stuff.
And it's the story is so lovely in being framed around almost character vignettes of like, here's this little bit about Tommy, here's this little bit about Andy, and here's this little bit about Red, and here's this little bit about the guy that kills himself. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Whitcrow.
Whitcrow. I'm going to call him Whitcrow. So here's this little bit about Whitcrow. And all those little things add up to an overarching thematic story.
Brooks.
Being about like...
Brooks was here. Red was here.
Yeah, Brooks. Being about what's right and what's wrong and moral ambiguity and even the human condition in lots of ways. And
you see the breaking point at one point of Andy, don't you, when he his only way out, and it's just like that, and yet it latches on. Yeah.
I'm very, very glad to have seen this now. I knew little bits about it. One of the things that Natalie brought up actually while we were watching this was she couldn't take the narration seriously because it's been parodied so many times.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is like one of the first examples of it, maybe the first.
No,
of Morgan Freeman narration. Because Morgan Freeman's narration's been done a fucking hell of a lot.
And I don't think that's really negative for the film. I think actually that's a positive for the film because it became
such the legacy of it, isn't it?
Exactly. It became such a cultural icon in that respect. And like, even though I've never seen this film before, I knew how it was going to end. Like the moment that poster comes in, I was like, oh, that's the poster. But like, I can't hold that against the film because that is me understanding something because it was so significant in the cultural zeitgeist. Similarly, I knew exactly how the film ended. Just because working where I do, people were like, hey, have you seen this ending? You've got to watch this scene. And that's how I knew that Red eventually got out.
Yeah.
And like I'd seen that
Which,
whole
by the way,
sequence.
is a great scene. Like you see the start of the film after you see the murder, and then in between, then you have the end. And the first two times, like, yeah, I've been a good citizen. And the last one's like, what the hell does it mean? You know, you come like this, I'm institutionalized. I thought I'd mess up that pronunciation. Anyway, and he's like, sod this, and he gets let loose, and it's just like...
And a lovely commentary on
the system.
Institutions in general and systems in general. Absolutely. The time where he finally throws in the towel and says, fuck it.
Yeah.
That's the time when like, stamp, you're out, you're good. How long is a life sentence, by the way?
In America, 25 years.
So he'd served 40 years of a life sentence, Red.
Yep. So he probably had 2 life sentences and then came off 10 years earlier. I assume... I don't know, he could have done 25 years, got caught, and added more years added on, because that's how they do it in American prisons.
35 here.
25.
25.
Yep.
Okay, well...
In America, over here, it's life.
If you're serving a life sentence, let us know in the comments below. There is the Shawshank Redemption. You can let us know what you thought of the Shawshank Redemption in the comments below, along with your current sentence, or you can hit us up on Twitter. We'll be back once again next week, where we're going to be taking a look at Zelig. Until then, get watching.
The fuck is Zelig?